guys doing?
I'm having my tea. I'm having my lemongrass tea, inspired by you, Ishel.
Oh,
I really like it.
yeah, right. We had that like literally every morning during our trip to Amsterdam. Yeah. What really reminds me of you guys is the Palo Santo. So I have that every single day, like lately.
Oh yeah, I was
Yeah.
about to turn mine on.
Yeah, awesome. So for those of you guys tuning in, we are having just a nice chat here with Georgie, with Ricky, Viviana, and we're talking about our trip to Amsterdam that we had already like a month ago, right? It's been a month.
Yep.
Wow. So yeah, we've had all this time to integrate all that happened, and some of us are still integrating, and but it was amazing. And I just want to share a little bit of a background of how that trip came about, because it wasn't really planned way ahead of time. It just kind of happened. And as most of you know, I had this moment where I was kind of saying, oh yeah, I'm just doing my own thing. I don't want to be part of any group, any community. I think it's important to come back to center. And yeah, for those of you following me around that time, that was like maybe around April or so. There was a time where I was even not on Instagram. So yeah, when we have these moments of really coming back to ourselves, I think it's good, because it helps us realize what types of energies or people, whatever it is that is really meant for us, it will always be there somehow. And I found myself still talking to certain people. For example, how this trip was planned was because I talked to Viviana just randomly one time. She responded something in a story or something like that. And we ended up talking about this trip that she was organizing with Georgie and Ricky and other people. And I'm like, oh wow, that sounds great. I kind of want to just say hi, maybe, because it's not that far away from France. Amsterdam is not that far. So she was like, yeah, like let's plan, and then let's see, maybe you can stay with us and everything. So I was like, am I really doing this? I was like, what is going on? Like, I've never met them in real life before. And it could be risky, for me. It's like I had just come back from Egypt as well, where the experience wasn't so great in general. I'm still processing all that stuff. But yeah, I was thinking, well, you know what, feeling into this, I think this is going to be a really nice experience. So yeah, I was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's, stay at an Airbnb for a whole week with people I've never met in my entire life. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, Ishel, and the amazing thing was I wasn't even normally checking my stories, like on Instagram you see like 5 stories, and I used to check the first maybe 6 or so, but not like, swipe. And then that day I was feeling like, okay, I feel I have to look for something. And then I saw your story and I was like, oh, Ishel. And like we haven't talked for literally 4 months or so, I feel, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then I just had this inspiration to invite you. And it was all so spontaneous. I love it.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like you kind of just know certain things that you have to talk to certain people, or you just get these nudges, right? And but you really got to be just, I guess, open to receiving these messages, because yeah, when we're just kind of going on I guess autopilot all the time, and we're not practicing mindfulness, for example, you're not really aware of these little nudges much. And I can say for myself that I used to be completely just focused too much on the future or the past, and so you're not present. So now that I feel like I've gotten a better knack at like getting myself centered and focused on what I'm doing in the moment, it's like, oh, you kind of go like, oh, I kind of want to say this to this person, or I want to go and see what this person is doing on Instagram or whatnot. So yeah, just to say, really listen to those signals, especially if they keep coming back. Sometimes we like having confirmation. It's like when we see red flags, it's like, oh, I see it, let's see it, let's get a flag that's a little more red than that, like so it goes both ways, right? But yeah, just pay attention to those things. And so yeah, after that we planned the trip, and it just kind of flowed pretty naturally. I don't know, for me everything was just perfect. I can't say, oh, there's a moment where I just was like, oh, I don't want to be here. Never, like ever. I would love for you guys to share your experience, and then we're also going to talk about the feeling, which I know you guys are probably intrigued because I've been posting things about this, and so we're like, what is this? Like, what is this really? So, all right, let's do the round table that we were talking about, right, Georgie? Like each one of us, yeah.
Starting with
you.
Okay. I was like, okay, who's going to be the brave one? Yeah, for me, wow, it was a very interesting experience, unexpected in some ways. And even though I didn't had expectations, I was questioning, and I was like, oh, maybe I have some hidden expectations. Maybe I do have some expectations, but I don't allow myself to acknowledge those. But right until I had the flight, I realized I didn't have any expectations. So it was a very interesting situation to be in, and probably for the first time in this lifetime where I entered a specific space with no expectation. I had such a open perspective. And for me, I wasn't even sure if I'm going to come eventually, because I was still oscillating between, is this a good idea or maybe not, or is this a good time for me or maybe not, or maybe I should get some rest and hibernate and start earlier my hibernation, or should I actually take this leap and go? It was very interesting. Just before, probably like a week or 2 weeks before the trip, I was convinced that yes, I'm definitely going, and then suddenly I wasn't sure anymore. And I had a lot of events happening in my life. My dog transitioned, and I had my dog for 13 years and 2 months. And she was a very important being in my life. She taught me a lot of things, and she was such a companion for me. And I only realized the magnitude of what she meant in my life right at the end. So that was happening. Then I had a completely new setting for my life. After years of being in the UK, I came back home in my hometown, and all these recalibration to this place. It was kind of like walking in mud or concrete at times. Oh my gosh, what's going on? So yeah, it was a quite difficult time for me. I definitely had heavy episodes of depression. And when we met in the Netherlands, the surprise was that somehow, and through all these times, since early this year, I really did inner child work. I started to really go into my childhood, working with my inner child, holding myself, my younger parts. And I noticed how this inner child can be very mischievous at times, or kind of like throwing a tantrum, or like, I want it now and I want it. And it was very interesting. It was very interesting to kind of have this experience. And then I met you guys in Amsterdam, and my one big surprise was that I really allowed this inner child to come to the surface. And I was worried because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go there, and maybe I'm still processing a lot of things, and I'm not sure I want to talk too much, and I probably am going to sit in a corner and just like observe. But I want to be involved at the same time. Like, I want to be part of it, and I don't want everybody else to think I'm some sort of like flower in a pot or some sort of vegetable. But being in your presence, Michelle, and of course Ricky and Viviana are also very funny and entertaining. But being in your presence and experiencing your laughter in person, for me, it was an amazing medicine. And I cracked open, and the entire time I was just, that's how I felt inside, like a little child, kind of like playing around and exploring and giggling and like being silly. and I missed so much these parts of me. They are long forgotten, and I used to be like that a lot, but somehow,
Oh,
yeah, like
that really warms my heart. Like
I'm
seriously.
back to see. But now it was just this revival of my inner child, and slowly, it's almost like in that kind of week or 6 days, whatever it was. In that week, I kind of like transitioned from this inner child expression, and I went back to my adult, but I went back into my adult with like more joy. So that was really beautiful. Other things that I really they really impacted me was how it felt for us to be together, and it felt that at times we didn't even needed a specific topic to discuss. It was like always an interaction. There was always a co-creation. There was always insights like coming through, and I experienced personally like a lot of things being amplified, like maybe some shadows as well, but also like different perspectives or ways of expanding the consciousness that they're not always very easy to touch by myself. So my experience was that our fields, our consciousnesses, the way we interacted for sure kind of like sparked or catalyzed some processes within myself. They were really interesting, and I'm not going to go necessarily into the depths of those because that's going to be like a 3 hour long podcast only about that. But I really loved the sense of communion. It was even more than community. It was the sense of communion, like to really be in the physical and really see somebody and really follow the micro expression of the face and feel somebody's warmth and like hug somebody and hear the voice not through a device and actually in the physical. So all of these things, yeah, they were like very beautiful for me to experience because I felt the connection, and also I felt the love, and that love that is not forced, that love that is just like naturally in the space and like freely in the space. And it was just, yeah, like the atmosphere was created by these feelings, I guess. The feeling. So it was like, you know, when there's humidity in the atmosphere and kind of like get a little bit denser, or like there's like fogginess outside, but it's not necessarily, it was not that feeling. It was the feeling that the air was charged, and this charge was the feeling of communion, and it was the love, and it was the laughter, and it was and the way we even were able to navigate like the logistics stuff, like what are we going to eat, where are we going to go, like are we going to go to this event or not, like yeah, it felt like it was very easy to move through these things. And even if somebody was tired or it's like, oh, I don't want to be outside, whatever it might be, we really quickly harmonized and we were able to move through these things nicely. So probably there are a lot of other things, but these are two main things. My personal experience that was like very unexpected, and then it was really beautiful to feel this grounded love, this grounded natural wisdom that was shared in the space, and to see that who I felt close to in real life is no different. Like for me, it was like you were exactly, all of you, they were exactly like how I felt or how I imagined. So that was a confirmation that what I actually feel is very accurate, and I can count on what I'm feeling, and it was so beautifully expressed in the space.
Wow. Can I interrupt you real quick? Because that just when when you were saying about harmonizing, and it's like, oh, somebody doesn't feel like doing something, but we quickly harmonize. I was thinking about the moment when you're like, no, I don't want pizza. And we're like, come on, Georgie.
Oh my gosh, guess what? I'm still talking to the lady.
No, give us the backstory because people probably want to hear more about this.
Maybe Ricky will say the story.
Yeah, Ricky, can you tell the story? You're probably the one to say this.
Um, so like whenever I go to trips, I usually feel like I ground myself in the present. I kind of feel the probability of me going to a trip in a specific time. And so the time arrives for this trip. And I remember just openly sharing on our group, hey, I'm gonna be on an exploratory mission in Amsterdam doing some stuff for a week. If you guys want to meet me there, this are the dates that I'm gonna be there. And everybody started talking, and we finally got a group together, and everybody went there. But whenever I go to my trips, I go very like the only structure that I set for my trips is how do I move the time frames that those trains or whatever are open and when I can take it and stuff like that, and where I eat. So that's the only things that I control on my trip. So like it's not like non-negotiables, but it's something that I want to have already known before I go, so I kind of know where I'm heading in that direction whenever the time comes. But I was handling the food scenario, right? And I remember I was like, yo, let's go to this vegan place that makes pizzas. It kind of feels kind of good. And we were in the cold. We walked like half an hour this way and then half an hour the other way, and finally we're at shout out to Massimo's or Massimo, something like that, in Amsterdam. And we're in the place. We go in, we start looking at the menu, and all of a sudden Georgie is like, no, I don't want pizza or something like that. I'm not vibing with the place. I don't know. This, that, and the other. And she kind of like walks out, and everybody was like I see that we could alchemize stuff based on everybody's needs, because we were all in a space of like kind of allowing each other to manifest and however we needed to manifest, and then from there taking like a congruent logical group decision to do whatever we wanted to do. And so I remember that day Excel was handling the GPS because I don't have self-service over there. So I was like, okay, let's go to either this one or this one. And she like picked one, and we arrived at the pizza place randomly. And then Georgie's like, no, let's go to the other place. And whenever we pull up the other place, it was closed. So, obviously there's no coincidence that Excel put the actual place that was open. And so Georgie's like, whatever, let's just go and eat the pizza. And I'm like, oh, I want this one and I want this one. And we kind of like got a pizza that was, the 32 slice or whatever it is, half and half. Half was vegetable and something else, and the other half had mushrooms. And then, the pizza arrives, and Georgie goes for the first slice of the mushroom pizza, and she has a bite, and all of a sudden there's this silence, and she goes, oh my God. Oh my God. Wow. And starts bawling out on that slice of pizza like heaven, basically. And yeah, there's no no Illuminati stuff here, but yeah, she was just going crazy about the slice of pizza, and all of a sudden we were just like enjoying this amazing lunch or dinner or something after that. So it was really funny because Georgie was like for like 3 minutes.
Yeah, but that's not it. Like
the
whole point was like I left the pizza place to go across the street to see like what they have in the menu, and then I had this like just like, Georgie, just don't be difficult, like, okay, I understand you're in your child right now, but it's not always like your way. I was like, okay, sorry. So then I thought like, you know what, we're here. Pizza is not actually a bad idea. What it scared me, it was the fact that it had like loads of ingredients on each pizza. I only eat plain pizza, just like
oh yeah, cheese.
yeah, exactly. Like either normal, like I don't eat pizza, and when I eat every 3 months, I will have just a simple pizza. And I was like, oh my gosh, like all of these stuff, like I don't know if I can do all of these things. And then anyhow, this happened, but because it was so good. Like that pizza. The place is called Mastino. Whoever goes to Amsterdam, you gotta go to Mastino Pizza. Is the best I
Yeah.
ever had. Probably not the best in the world. Maybe it is. We don't know, but it's definitely worth trying. So what
Mm.
happened is like we're eating that half and half, and then I was like, there's absolutely no way I'm going to be satisfied just with 2 slices of pizza. So I went and I ordered another mushroom pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was another funny thing here at this pizza place. I remember Isha put her phone. Or what did you had in your head? You put your phone on their shelves, and they had this jars with tomato sauce, and and then at some point Viviana came. And she was like, "Oh my gosh! Like, who made this mess here?" It's like, and put you slide the phone a little bit, and then rearrange the tomato jars. And then 2 minutes later, right at the end, Ricky's like, "Oh my God, these are not perfectly straight." So he went and he rearranged the tomato jars, and we had like this thing, like everywhere we go, everything has to be like very well harmonized.
I know. I kind of remember that. And then there was like the moment with like we had the the little llama that you got me. He was
Yeah.
there too. He was eating pizza as well. Like he was everywhere. And I yet have to edit a short video of like Dante and the llama moments. But yeah.
That was a really nice moment because that was the place where we first met in Amsterdam. We were there already, and you came, and next door was this health store. And I go into the health store
That
because
was not the pizza place.
No, that was the first place. Yeah.
yeah, this is the first place. It's not the pizza place, but the story of Dante and the llama is from me walking to this health store because I have this little obsession with them, and I'd really like to go in and check them out and see what products they have and what new minerals are on the market, whatever. And always to buy chocolate. And I got some licorice, salty licorice, absolutely phenomenal. And then walking around in some section that I had nothing to do with, I saw this little basket with this like little animals, and I don't know how it's called, that thing. And I saw this baby llama, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's a llama!" And I bought it. And I gave it to Isha. I was like, "Oh, hey, we have a friend here with us. You cannot escape the llama." And basically, it's an egg, like some sort of animal you put on top of the egg to keep the egg warm. But I didn't know that. I just thought it's just some random animal made in Guatemala. And then yeah, Dantian the llama appeared in the space and was with us like for the entire adventure. It ended up on Isha's head at some point on her butt.
Yeah. Yeah. And why did we decide to name him Dantian? I guess it's because we were talking about the energy centers or something, right?
Yeah, we were talking about Nigong and the lower Dantian, and then yeah, and the cactus was also really interesting in the middle of Amsterdam. You looked so Mexican there, or I don't know. It's like as if we were like time traveling.
Oh yeah, that's true. I sat like right next to a cactus. That's true. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was really funny. So Georgie, did you want to add anything else to your experience? Because I enjoyed it with
I mean, I can something always comes to me, but I will stay here on the side observing and create space for somebody else to come.
Okay, who wants to go next?
Well, I can go and finish my part.
Yeah.
What was the question again?
Well, just share how you felt during the trip. Like it's like in school. It's like, what was the question again, teacher?
How did I feel on the trip? Felt good. It felt really. Are you laughing?
I mute myself because I'm always laughing. So yeah, go ahead.
But overall, the trip felt good. I remember organizing it, and like Georgie is like, "Oh, this person and that person, and this person and that person, and this person and that person." I was like, "Georgie, wait, I don't mind a group of 20 people, but like first time, let's do like 8, 7, not like 40. But we kind of like met at that hotel we were staying the first day, and that was kind of like all flow from there to the end, basically. I just remembered whenever I'm in groups, I try to like get into my observer type neutral mode, that I can like see what where is Excel coming from, where is Georgie coming from, where is Viviana coming from, where is everybody like coming from. It's like a thing that I do to see where everybody is at and how we could all go to a similar place depending on the decisions that we wanted to like walk through here or see this or eat that. And it was very easy in the sense of like how we were all allowing each other to, in a sense, be genuine, share what we needed to share, say if we wanted to go here, or if we didn't want to go here, and then consider like the different possibilities of doing or not doing. So for me, it was a cool experience. I've experienced that before, but obviously not meeting anybody in the person, and just first day or so getting to do all that in tandem or in like synchronicity or in symphony. It was nice, which kind of like goes back into the actual purpose of the call, which is the feeling, right? Because whenever you tap into that space, you can't see the flow, who's not flowing, where is that person other flowing, and then you can kind of like see like a proper direction for everybody to flow towards. And it's fun to observe all that and then see it without having to put any crazy boundaries or templates into how to do things. You could see how everything kind of organized in a way that we all were in benefit, and everything was fair, and we were all in the space of respect. And that's very general, but that was the overall view of my observation of the whole trip. And if there was some like, oh, I don't want to eat pizza, or I don't want to do this, we were kind of like, okay, let's try your part. And then like Georgie said, you can't always have your part. Your inner child said that. There's that other aspect we also did share in regards to helping each other go towards a place that benefited all, but also hearing each other's requests or needs to see how we could meet them in some way. So I think that was kind of like the overall, my view of the trip in sense.
Nice. And you know what? My favorite part with you, Ricky, was when we came up with this superhero in, in the one of the metro stations or something. Do you remember the name?
Gasper Blas. Yeah, I have this thing, like I remember Georgie saying for the first time, oh, that we call eggplants aubergine. And I'm like, my inner child is like, oh, that sounds like a superhero, aubergine or something like that.
Yeah, aubergine.
Yeah. And then Iksha, we were on the train and she's like, oh, Gasper Blas. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like a superhero. And she's like, oh yeah, it sounds like he throws water. I'm like, no, look at the first 3 words. It's gas. And that was a whole joke.
And in that moment we saw a rainbow, by the way, so it was really significant.
That was after, actually, because the thing is, we saw Gasper Plus like 5 times after that or something. Yeah, it was everywhere. And it's like, oh, there it is again. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, this is a station in one of the the metros in Amsterdam, the Gasper Plus. Yeah, and oh my gosh, the rainbow was magical because there are no rainbows around here. Like I haven't seen one in a long time. So I was like, again, that inner child thing, a rainbow, and I was like taking pictures of it. There was a guy next to me, like, it's just a rainbow, like.
That guy was high as fuck. It was like, yo, we have those a lot here because it's constantly raining. And Nick was like, oh my god. He probably thought that we were high as fuck too.
Yeah, he probably thought I was high, which it's like she's looking at a rainbow and like what's so exciting about it. I know. Yeah, but there was so many fun little moments like that to remember that I will personally remember forever. So Viviana, did you want to talk about your experience?
Sure. Somehow this moment comes when you and me were the only one left, Isha, right? In this pub. And then we were sitting in front of the checkerboard thingy, and it was just so strange because all week we were like super aware and, you know, like cautious where we put our energy and our focus and everything. And then we were just sitting there, and yeah, it was such a different situation. But yeah, to come back to the beginning, I felt like even before the trip, I feel through this like last 2 years and through doing a lot of things online, my intuitive sensing of people becomes more and more clear and subtle. And as Georgie said, like I felt coherence with how I was feeling you before and how I was feeling you when we were meeting. Because actually Georgie was the only one, from the guys who are here now, I've met before in person. And
Yeah, you had met Georgie, right? But you hadn't met Ricky.
yes, yeah, in July I went to Romania. And pre-trip, it was so interesting to see when we were kind of like assembling and planning and everything, that the approach of how we want to structure or how we not want to structure this trip. And I was actually a bit concerned of like, okay, how's this going to work out when we're there? And then some people really like to have a structure, and Ricky said like he's not planning a lot, but to make like a document, like a Google document for the trip, for me this is planning. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, but that was only transportation and food.
No, it was also the dancing. I'm like, why do you plan dancing? Like,
Oh yeah.
I mean,
I like to, I don't like to go to trips and spend like half an hour on my phone trying to figure out how to move or how to do it. So
I fully get it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It was just interesting to see how this was your approach, or that's how you not plan your trip, and how other people were just like, yeah, we will see when we're there, you know, and how we somehow managed when we were all together to harmonize and to have a group dynamic that's super accepting and, yeah, as you said, alchemizing everyone's needs and really being an individual, but also kind of working as a group feel together. And yeah, it was really beautiful for me. And yeah, normally I don't really like groups. I really came to this like intentional living of really, tuning in if I really want to meet someone, not just meeting people because I just want to be social or whatever. It's more like I see if this is really aligned or if I really feel like doing this. And it was the first time actually when I was in this kind of group dynamic where I felt like everyone is kind of heard and everyone is sharing honestly. Like, of course, you need this honesty with yourself first, but there were like certain moments where there was some, inner child dynamics or so coming up, and we were all able to be honest about it and to look at this, and this is super beautiful. And I just know this extremes of like either there's like this balance or this unbalance into love, where like nothing is addressed, everything is put under the rug, and everyone is just pretending everything's nice, or the unbalance into wisdom, where it's like you constantly reflect each other and you constantly mirror, but there's not this balance of love. And I felt we were kind of meeting in the middle, which was super beautiful for me.
Wow, yeah. I felt the same. I can agree with all that you said, so I guess I'm done sharing. I'm just kidding.
It was definitely amplifying like everything when we were meeting, but I felt we were looking after each other, and it was a beautiful healing experience in that way.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Same. I felt the same. And also, I do have stuff to add, by the way, but, based on what you guys said, yes, I agree with everything that you said. I felt the same in all dimensions, because even the inner child thing, like here, I don't really have people that I get along with or anything. So if maybe I can show that in certain posts or when I talk to you guys by message or on Instagram or whatnot, it just here I don't really have that opportunity. So to be physically with you guys and to be able to express that inner child like but live, that was just, for me, it was just amazing. And I had missed that. I had missed contact with people and everything, and I had been asking like, so when am I going to meet people around here or somewhere? I don't know. And I was thinking maybe there's something wrong with me, but maybe I'm being too picky, like I just don't like anybody around here. I can have like short conversations with people just of every day, like how's the weather and this and that, but it's not those deep conversations that I was having with you guys, and I really missed that. And yeah, because what I would consider deep conversations before has completely changed as well. I had this moment in my life, as you guys might also have gone through something similar, those of you listening, and I know you guys here as well. It's like everything just falls apart. You don't have the same friends at all, and you try to reconnect sometimes with certain people, but you just don't have the same interests, and the topics that you used to talk about don't seem as deep anymore, you know. So it's like that was going on still, and I was like, okay, well, let's see how this trip goes. And like Georgie said, I didn't want to have any expectations or anything. And of course, everybody has, in a way, certain expectations. We can't just get rid of them. But then, yeah, you be flexible about them, right? Yeah, plan your trip, like Ricky was saying, but be open to things changing last minute. And that's what happened, right? We had certain things that I mean, we maybe wanted to do, but it wasn't like we were fixed in those ideas, right? I think that was what was cool about this whole trip, is that nobody was really attached to anything. It's more like, yeah, connected. What's the phrase? Like, you're connected to everything and not attached to anything, or something like that. So that's kind of what I felt, the vibe that I got, and this engaged detachment, right? So and so, yeah, it's really nice to get together with people who really understand these concepts, and are actually also acting the way that they, like, what is the phrase, like do as you preach or something, like some people, I feel like you see them online and they're doing or saying certain things. Sorry?
Walk the talk.
Yes.
Or talk the walk.
Talk the walk. Yeah. So, and then you meet them in person and it's like, yeah, it doesn't really match, because online it's very easy for people to pretend to be something that they're not. So yeah, but with you guys now, it's just, like somebody else was saying earlier, I forget if it was Georgie or Ricky, it's like, or Viviana, but anyway, I think we all can agree that it's like, yeah, as I felt you guys through the phone, it was magnified, in person. And yeah, so when you get this feeling, right, about somebody, even sometimes it's just a message that someone sent you and you don't even know them, and sometimes you're like, pay attention to the face that you make when you get that message, right? It's like, all right, do you feel happy? Do you feel like there's a heavy energy? Does it feel, you always feel something, right? And the first impression is super important for those of you listening. I know you're very intuitive, and some of you still have to trust that intuition a little bit more. So yeah, keep practicing that. Like, what was my first impression of this person, right? So yeah, I mean, it's just like a confirmation when you meet people in the physical. So that was really nice, because I have a very difficult time, like Viviana was saying, with groups, with when I'm in a team or at school. If I was working on a project with other people, it's like, that was super difficult for me always. And so yeah, it's nice to get together with people who you can actually, yeah, really understand each other and work through even those little difficulties, that you can encounter once in a while, but for it to just kind of, yeah, harmonize very easily. Another thing as well is that I was still, in a way, a little bit like apprehensive or a little bit tense, and I did express that at some point. Because I'm like, I think there's a part of me that's still super scared, like this is too good to be true, kind of thing, like I think that's mostly what it was. Now thinking back at how I was feeling, it's like I was coming back from this other trip where the experience wasn't so nice, and then like, well, what if it's the same, or yeah, I don't know. And so there's still this like feeling of like, well, should I or should I not? And yeah, so the first couple days I did feel like my body was really tense still, and I also had to release a lot of things and express a lot of things that I hadn't talked to anyone about, because, like I said, I don't really have people around here that I can really trust. And online I have 1 or 2, 3 other people besides you guys, but still, it's like, yeah, it's not the same as like when you're physically with someone and you can hug them and say, oh, this is how I was feeling, and just cry and release all of that energy, those of that it's called the emotions, or like energy in motion, right? And so yeah, it felt nice to be able to do that in a safe space. And after a while I was like, oh yeah, I feel like I can be more myself, which I was never not myself, but still a little bit limiting in a way. It's like, yeah, like and then of course, still I'm pretty sure that if we do yet another trip, we'll discover even more things about each other, so it's not like we know absolutely everything about each other, but I did feel like I could say more, than I regularly do with people when I first meet them. So yeah, that was my experience. And I don't know if there's any other little thing that I wanted to add, but well, if I think of something else, I'll add it on later. But yeah, I mean, my favorite part for sure was the feeling, the conversation about the feeling, for sure. It's that was yeah, I don't even have words for it. Like, I think we were saying this before too, is like sometimes there are certain things that you just can't really put words to it, the way you feel about it. But it was just very magical, that moment of yeah, everyone just kind of expressing their own. What I was saying is that everybody was kind of expressing their superpower in this trip, and especially in that moment that we had. So yeah, I don't know who else wants to maybe chime in about the feeling and maybe explain to people listening a little bit more. I think, well, Ricky was the one who started talking about it and calling it the feeling. So maybe you could tell us a little bit more, Ricky, about it.
How do I feel?
Yeah, we can start with that. Yeah. And then, and then what were you feeling in that moment, perhaps when you were explaining to us, like, what the feeling is and what were you doing exactly, and
So I was basically kind of like in a meditative state. And I was just basically inundated by this overall feeling. But it was like if you were to describe it, it would be like a mix of joy, love, care, security, yet trust, like a lot of good things all bundled up together. And like if I were to describe that feeling, was mostly the entirety of who we are. And obviously whenever we condense into this form, if we don't keep the awareness of this that we are, whatever it is, right, we're just calling it a feeling, we kind of have to linger between different memories or different states of awareness to either heal, let go of things, and reprogram, or reintroduce to ourselves who we really are, without the bias of all this conditioning, programming, and all this culture that we think ourselves as humans in some way. But in general, I was just sitting there and just feeling this overall energy of who I am, and I was like guided to take parts of my body that were in a correct imprint, or were in pain, or had been in pain, and I was basically taking those parts of my body, like my low back. I was basically going into that tunnel, and I couldn't see much, but it was just it. If you were to put it, it's like, it's not a wormhole, but it was like it's like a current. Whenever you look at the ocean, and there's this tubes of like water going in a specific direction, it felt like that. So I was just like put myself in there. I took that part of my body, and I was like taking it up towards that state or that feeling. And as soon as I was there, I could feel my low back kind of like, if we want to describe it in the form of particles or atoms and stuff like that, like the whole grid of my low back was like conforming and changing to like this feeling, which is the original imprint that it should carry. And then obviously specific to my body whenever it came back to my body, but I was just taking it there, and I was just telling this part of myself to come back into remembrance, into this awareness, or into this feeling of who we are in general. and then I was taking it back into my body, and then coming into my body and seeing what else needed to be resolved, that I was still holding on to that attachment. And that's kind of like where I came with this perspective of the feeling and the idea of how, like, you know, many religions and stuff like that try to define God. They try to define this thing that we all are, but they, you know, you can put words, use dogma and all this stuff, but it's something that is mostly described, but a few people actually feel it. And whenever you focus on the feeling of it, you actually get to understand it, you actually get to know it, rather than putting concepts in and defining this space. Because to me, in some way, like if you can get like a whole book to define this feeling, it's still limiting to what it is. So, you know, you can get to conceptualize it, and it helps other people to understand and maybe to remember this feeling. But we have to remind ourselves that it's about feeling rather than knowing, because the knowing comes after we actually get to feel. And so that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, and you know, I was just thinking that for me, that the feeling was present in many moments. I mean, even maybe throughout the whole trip in a way, even
Yeah.
though we weren't necessarily focusing too much on it, but it was always just kind of there, you know, like the word that comes to mind is like a fuzzy feeling, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we started connecting to this and what you were saying, I remember like I got super emotional at some point. I was looking at you, I was like, this is so beautiful.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then I was like looking at Georgie, and then it was just beautiful too, because you guys were talking, you and Viviana were talking, and I was looking at both of you actually, and I told you guys look beautiful. I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah.
I had to interrupt him, like I have to interrupt you guys and tell you this. Yeah. Yeah, and then Georgie was right next to me, so we were just like, you know, we were hugging, and it was like this whole everybody was kind of working on something different, but at the same time we were all connected to that feeling.
Yeah.
It felt like this group trauma healing, and I've never experienced it before. Like, I mean, I'm doing this since years for myself, and also maybe like one-on-one or talking about it, but not like in a group of like a coherent feeling of healing. And this was super special for me as well.
Oh yeah, I remember the part when we were talking about the mother wound, you know, that for me was super powerful. It's like we were all healing this part too, and to me it also felt like it was sending ripples out to the collective, you know. So I do feel like there was like this wave of a sort of like healing going on everywhere. And I think it was no coincidence that a lot of us were getting sick or feeling something, and then even people around us started getting sick, right?
Who was around us getting sick?
People around us, like Kara's dad got sick. Somebody else told me, oh, I'm sick. Oh, I went to the hospital.
Yes, sick. Yeah. I'm not right then and there, but I have a feeling, if I'm remembering well, Liz was not feeling well the day before she came. Or
Liz?
anyway, but right after, she also got this symptoms, like this cold symptoms. So yeah, it was very, very interesting for me. It took a while to hit me, but for sure, there was a lot of energy being cleared. And I remember Ricky was saying something about the moms, how the mom actually all started with you, Michelle. You looked at the phone and it's like, oh, I'm wondering what's the time now for Kara. For Kara, she's getting ready to sleep. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, baby Kara. I was like, oh. And then we started to get emotional thinking of her. And for whatever reason, like I was feeling like this child that was there in France, which is your daughter, but equally like aware and like very powerful as a consciousness. And somehow I just connected to her, thinking that you, her mom, is sitting in this room with us, and she's of course, looked after, but like her mom is not necessarily in the same space with her. And I got emotional about that. And suddenly, I remember that she was imitating you, and she said this thing like anyway. So I since then I kind of use this is my mantra whenever I get in a uncomfortable icky yucky space. I somehow diffuse that energetic charge with this like um very light and very I could not even see. It's like exactly like that thing. Like the feeling is not that it's a bypassing, or it's not that I'm looking at things and I'm pushing them under a rug. Like it gives me a certain lightness that I was not able to touch before. So whenever I'm in a very difficult situation, I think about this mantra from Kara. It's like anyway, and it's almost like I'm moving through it, and I'm swimming, and my head is above the water, and I'm not struggling within the currents, kind of thing. So that happened, and then I remember Ricky was saying something. He continued a little bit later on about how the moms are holding this lifeline, this feeling, and that this feeling that the moms are anchoring on the planet is just a part of it. It's not the entire thing. It's just part of it. But yeah, it was a very beautiful, deep healing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thanks for sharing that part. That was, I think, my favorite part of the whole conversation for sure. Like when we all connected to that, because yes, it was healing for us, healing for like just anybody that was needing that, it seemed like to me in that moment. And yes, maybe some people didn't feel it right away, but like you were saying, it's like some people got sick after the trip, and it's like, yeah, maybe also there's the flu season and stuff. Yeah, of course, whatever. But at the same time, I don't get sick at all anymore. Like that's weird, that I had that throat thing going on for a while. And it's also interesting to me because for me, one of my biggest challenges coming into this planet was the communication. And that's something that I'm still even working on today, of course. But I just thinking about this gets me like really emotional, because I didn't like my voice at all. I didn't like listening to recordings of my voice. I thought my voice was ugly. It's somebody, like, I just remember people making fun of me when I was younger, and so, or because I wouldn't speak the language, or stuff like that. So that was like, it just, these things that keep accumulating. It's like, but they're challenges for us to discover that the superpower that's behind that. That's what I feel. So I'm still working on that, right? Like the speech and everything, and also the slowing down. This is like slow compared to how I used to speak before. Honestly, yeah. So I've learned to do that as well, and I know it's a big part of what I'm here to do. So yeah, I found it, going back to the whole throat thing, like it just was super interesting how bad it was hurting, and then also my head. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on, like physically, and I do feel like these are manifestations of the stuff that's going on in terms of the inner work that we do. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but yeah.
I actually do, because I'm also tending to speak really fast. And I was like examining this for myself. I was like, why am I doing this? And I feel there are like two different strands here. One is like, there's just so much I want to express. Like when I was like 16 and exploring light language for the first time, it helped me so much to be able to express things that I was otherwise not able to bring through, because there's just so much that can come through at the same time and the encryption, but our words and our languages are so limiting in some way. And yeah, so this is one thing of kind of like trying to squeeze in more into one moment. And the other thing is as well, at least in my case, maybe it resonates with you, to feel like as a kid that everyone wants to speak and no one feels heard, and you kind of have to speak fast that you can say something. Kind of this like I wouldn't call it a trauma response, but it's like this part of like there's not enough space, or there's not enough like space for me. And yeah, I feel it's good to meet in the middle of both of these strands.
I remember you did bring that up one time during the trip, and I had to observe that too. It's like, yeah, pay attention to like not interrupt and stuff. And I, you know, sometimes I'm like, oh, I catch myself, I'm like, oh, and I have to excuse myself because yes, it's like you said, when you're little, especially, I don't know if you have like a big family.
Yeah, I have several siblings, and yeah.
Yeah, and
And you?
yeah, well, I have two other sisters, but my like my extended family, I guess you call it, like uncles and aunts, and we just a lot of people. So whenever there's like family gatherings and stuff like that, or birthdays or whatnot, it's like, yeah, everybody's talking, and even in school, you know, still like you're in environments where you don't feel heard. It's like you were saying, right? So that happened to me a lot as well. And yeah, so we want to have that moment. I was like, okay, this is my time to say everything. Blah, 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 blah. You know? Yeah, I feel you on that.
Ricky, what did you want to say before?
Yeah, I was gonna share a memory that came by. It was whenever I was in like high school, whenever we graduated, 7th grade or something like that. I remember they gave me this. They gave every kid an award for something that they do very well, and mine was making weird noises. And whenever you were talking, Kayla and Viviana, about your throat chakra, I was like, interesting contrast. And this memory came in, and I was like, that is so funny. You know, at least for me, you know, this crazy, you know, authentic kid doing all sorts of whatever noises that nobody has heard.
Wow. Yeah, but at least you felt comfortable expressing yourself and everything.
I didn't really care. Like I was doing my, you know, that was part of myself. That was, you know, like I would say, I don't know, that was just being me. Just, I don't know. I wasn't even trying to be funny or weird. It was just impulses that just came. I was like, ah, and did some weird noise.
You got an award for that. That's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, there was an award for this girl in our class was like 3 times a day took baths just to wash her hair, and her hair was like silky smooth, and she got an award for that. So it was interesting. But yeah, I was gonna talk about how after that whole experience, like right after that whole experience, I like started to get a fever, and I started to like purge like a lot of stuff, and it was cool to me to experience it, because all of a sudden, like, I'm the only boy or man in the group, and you're all like girls and females, and I'm like,
girls and females.
Yeah, what?
Whoa! Like,
whoa, cool.
What did you
Like the
say?
llama and
What did you say, Shell?
Did you say girls and females? Like, who's the girls, who's the females?
Well, I'm just tagging back into what I just said, like boys and men. Yeah, it was interesting to me that I just got sick, and I was like, I mean, I wasn't sick, I wasn't debilitated, like I couldn't do anything, but it was just this like extreme fever and like warmth in my body, like a purging, like a you know, burning stuff. And I remember just like, you know, we had that conversation about the mother energy and like the child, you and your daughter, and then all of a sudden it's like all you girls were like, hey, you need anything, kind of like mommying me. But not in a bad way.
That's so
you know,
true.
Yeah, I felt supported and cared by, you know, and safe. So for me, it was a cool experience to not have met you guys, and all of a sudden be in a situation that I could cook for myself. Obviously, I could, you know, make my own tea and stuff like that. But since you girls were there, it was like, hey, do you need anything, or this, that, and the other? And I was like, okay, this is nice. I like this.
You're like tu sirvientas, you're servants. Like,
No, I was seeing it more like loving, like nurturing mommy energy.
Of course. Yeah, I was just joking.
giving him onion tea.
Yeah, that was a nice tea.
Oh my god.
Onions, onions,
Yeah, like,
garlic, and what was the other thing? I don't remember.
Ginger? I don't know. But actually, I was
Yeah, maybe.
suggesting that you put the onion on your ears, but that was not like pleasing, right?
On my ears, I never heard that.
Yeah, this is like
your
good for
belly
ear
button as
pain.
well.
And then you
Oh
were
yeah,
asking me
yeah,
about how to warm it up, and then you were making a tea. So
yeah,
you're
yeah.
kind of, yeah, that's something that happened quite often if we were kind of like picking up each other's inspiration, but yeah, making it on our own way.
Oh, yeah, I just love how everybody had a solution to something, you know, it's like, oh, oh, you have this, oh, here's that, and then, you know, everybody would like chip in a way, and that's cool, right? That we could put our superpowers or our knowledge together, or just maybe our humor once in a while, you know, it depended on what was needed. We had it was available for us.
Yeah, it was always available.
Yeah.
Even I had moments in which, of course, it was a big apartment, and actually a very beautiful apartment, the one we rented, and we kind of had conversations all together, and then we're swapping, and maybe it was two of us having a conversation, and we're just interchanging that like that. And I remember I was talking to Isha, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm missing out. Viviana and Ricky, they are debunking this mystery of the universe, and I'm really missing out. And then I would turn around. It's like, no, I'm here. I'm in the present. I'm just having this conversation with Ishel, and then Ishel was sharing something, and I was like, wow, this is so cool. And I was like, so like in the experience. And then suddenly I would say something, and Ishel would turn around, like, you're exactly talking about the exact same thing they're talking about. I was like, oh, really?
Yes.
And this feeling was everywhere. Like Ishel, she insisted to buy this Belgian chocolate. It was Belgian chocolate, no? It was
Yeah.
made in Holland, in Netherlands, but it was Belgian chocolate. And it was
I
this,
didn't know.
yeah. She's like, I want to have this chocolate. She came with this beautiful blue silver, I think it was like silver box inside with this like very cute little chocolates. And for whatever reason, I had this dark chocolate with sea salt and almonds. That for sure, I got to the point, and I think we all got to the point where I couldn't bear the chocolate anymore, because I think I went a little bit over the top. And at some point, I remember tasting one of those chocolates, and it was incredible. And I remember that again, I was like very fussy about, and it's like, oh, why do we need the chocolate? We have chocolate outside. Like, why would you go to this like fancy place? You have to walk in the cold all the way there to buy this chocolate, whatever. And then I have this piece of chocolate, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is freaking exquisite. It was one of, and this funny thing is that I worked in a Belgian chocolate shop in the UK for
Oh, yeah.
3 months. So I was having so many of this chocolate, and I couldn't fathom like how a Belgian chocolate could ever kind of surprise me. That's why I'm saying like it was a very interesting experience that I didn't had any expectations, but at the same time, a lot of things kind of surprised me in many in very unexpected ways.
Like the pizza.
Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And for me, all these moments, like having a conversation with you through the window, and on the other side, I was going to Viviana and Ricky. We're outside getting some air. And it was really in this like moment. It was just a moment in which that feeling was just so present, and it was almost like it was coming through in a manifest form. And for me, that was what it came to me in that space. It was that, in a way, that feeling, the way I feel it, is connection. Like if I had to comprise it in one human word, for me, that is connection. And that connection could be with anything, because everything is part of one, everything is part of what I call the source. So this eternal source perpetually creates, and perpetually sending the streams of consciousness in form of these feelings. I feel like in this reality here, it kind of downsteps and materializes in this glimpses of source, and it could be looking at a flower or smelling a flower or the taste of unexpected taste of chocolate or a hug or that feeling of harmony within a group or music, the way I was hearing the music and the way music makes me feel, or the way I feel when I'm dancing, the way a certain fabric makes my skin feel. All of these things for me at the end of the trip, it was like, oh wow, these are all anchors. They're all points that I can utilize to remember my connection to source. And
Yeah.
through these bits of and moments and bits and bobs of experiences, because there are so many and sometimes so tiny and sometimes can be imperceptible, but if I'm paying enough attention and I feel them and I see them and I experience them over and over and over again, it's almost like I'm enforcing and almost like recreating this connection to source. And it feels like I also feel myself because I become aware of myself. I become aware of who am I and where I am, and I'm living in this body and the way I move and the way I talk. So it was very interconnected experience. And at the end of the whole trip, when I was looking back, it felt like it was like a thread, and this thread was this feeling that was coming in all sorts of situations in all sorts of ways. And then at the end I was looking back, it's like, oh my gosh, here it is. It was there the whole time.
Yeah, wow, exactly. And yeah, this expands a little bit on that post that that video that I edited with that part where you were saying, it's like, it's interesting how, I think it was something along the lines of how Source uses concepts to also get out of this reality, like to bring you like to say, okay, don't get too stuck in this, the concepts here. There's also this feeling, right? Something along those lines.
I was saying that sometimes I cannot compute when I hear a lot of concepts. When I hear a lot of concepts, my consciousness cannot compute because it just knows vibration. It just knows frequency, it just knows vibration oscillation and like the way they weave together. And sometimes I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot grasp the concept. And then I kind of felt into it. And it's almost like, oh, but actually, I do love concepts because I love concepts. Concepts help me understand certain things. But at the same time, the trick is not to get caught up in the concept and actually use the concept or use a specific perception to get myself out of the concept itself, because this whole reality is based on concepts. Like society agreed on certain things, like the culture that Ricky was saying at the beginning, whatever society was fed with created a reality. So I'm using concepts to understand reality just enough to be able to use the concept to get my consciousness out of it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like it kind of like it's not helping me, but then if I understand it, then it actually, the concept itself helps me to get out of the trap itself.
Yeah, so a concept could be, for example, that chocolate, right? And it's like, oh, this is a chocolate, but and then you eat it, and then it's like, oh, this experience is, it's like that it's kind of reminding you of the feeling.
Yeah, I would say like also, like, I don't know if you have, whenever your grandma, whenever you were a little kid, used to cook this stuff, and all of a sudden some random person that just met mentions the same dish that she used to do, and all of a sudden you get this feeling out of the words or the concept that that person is describing, and then all of a sudden it takes you back to the past and into a memory, right? So if you link the concepts to the actual feeling and you go deep within it, beyond the description of that label, you get to unlock a lot of memory. So like whenever I started going into, you know, trying to figure out this whole matrix and stuff, I used to just follow symbols. I didn't follow words, I didn't follow ideas, I didn't follow religion, I didn't follow any of that. I just followed the symbol. And through the symbol, I was able to access the information, which is basically a memory, which is basically a feeling, basic, you know, it's part of the whole concept of the awareness, basically.
Yeah. Are you speaking about like the geomancies, for example, right?
Yeah, in general, like whenever I figured out that, you know, the flower of life was a complete trap, I was meditating on top of the flower of life. And I was like after that whole meditation, the only thing in my head was the purpose of all this is escaping the flower of life. And I'm like looking at my feet and the flower of life is right there. I'm like, oh shit, okay, what's going on? You know? But it all came through meditating so deeply that I lost the sense of the attachment to the body and to this thing. And I remember coming back into the body and just having that consciously. And it was more like a, you know, it was words, but it had a feeling. That feeling unpacked into a lot of the words that Keylontic science describes. And that's why, you know, I'm not attached to Keylontic science or the teacher or any of that, but like the concepts help me put words on what I feel. And that's why I kind of resonate with the information to a degree, because it does give me a way to express and be heard, and also share the same feeling that other people might be sharing through the language or the tonal of what we feel, you know, because, you know, at a certain point we can just communicate through feelings, right? Because if I feel you're getting pissed off, like I'm gonna know to change what I'm doing or try to figure out how or why you're feeling mad, you know. It's like I remember I was with a friend, we were just got out of surfing, and he was riding co-pilot, and we were passing by a cow, and my friend is like saying some stupid shit to the cow in Spanish. And as soon as he did that, I just felt the cow go like, oh no, you're not, you know, like the cow got angry and it like squared up like it was gonna ram my truck. And I was like, bro, did you see what happened? He's like, no. And I'm like, apologize to the fucking cow. So he's like, why? I'm like, dude, look at it right now. And he's like, oh shit, it looks like it's angry. I'm like, yeah, no shit. Just say something, you know. And do you think, I don't know if the cow understands Spanish, right? But it definitely felt like, you know, he was disrespecting it or something. So I was able to sense the cow's feeling, its energetic composure towards what my friend just said. So most of the communication language is through energy, right? And we can say sound, light, or feeling or emotions and stuff. So concepts, like you were saying, can bind us to attach to a specific idea or thing, and it binds us to the reality of that. But as you understand the concepts are used to, in the real sense of it, are used to evolve you. And there's, you know, practice and stuff like that is used to cultivate specific feelings and specific realizations. Like realization is a feeling. Like whenever you like realize something, it's like you have this like rush of neurotransmitters or whatever is moving through your body. And I was like, aha, I understand, you know. And it's a whole feeling that's behind all the concepts or words that you're using to put it in context for either yourself or your brain to understand it, or your mental body, but also for you to express it to other people or beings. So behind the concepts is a feeling. And if you detach from the concept and you use the feeling to elevate yourself, then you actually can use the concepts to unbind yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you can use, I can say some weird Illuminati sacrificial ritual or something like that, and people are gonna be like, blood, or they're gonna have all these feelings, right, from that image or from what I'm saying. So it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. So and I can definitely agree with you on the whole like how to explain all these concepts, right? That we kind of just know. It's kind of, there are certain teachings or books that you can read, etc. But I also want to add that they all carry these filters, right, of the person who's bringing it in as well. So yeah, for anybody listening and that's maybe new to this information, like the KS Kalantic Sciences, definitely check it out. But always be aware that there's the filters and whatnot, and everything. Just use it as like Ricky was saying, something that helps you explain things, but don't get attached to any of the information or the concepts. Always go back to how do you feel about it, right? What's that feeling? What's going on within you? I don't know.
And if you want to see it in a different way, like whenever you're investigating something and whenever you're kind of like try to figure out if this is true or how true it is, like I found, at least for myself, in a way you could call it intuition, but I used to try to lay empty and see what type of feeling that used to cultivate whenever she said it or whenever he said it, right? It's not, I didn't go behind, like I didn't go chasing the word or the definition or how the word was constructed in a sentence and what it said. I used to go for, or I still do that, but how it felt for me whenever such and such said it, beyond the filter of who's saying it and how they're saying it. And in that feeling, you're gonna find that your intuition is gonna tell you no, yes, or maybe, and the different degrees of how it could be. In my experience, that's how I try to figure out a lot of stuff.
And always pay attention to that intuition, because regardless of if you're right or wrong, whatever, that's not important. What's important is that it's leading you towards something that you're going to work on, right? And then maybe later you'll be like, oh, maybe actually now I don't resonate much with that anymore, or that person or whatnot. But still go for that if it feels good in the moment. What am I going to learn here? And then maybe later you'll discover a new thing, right? That might be even better than that or whatnot. But you're going to learn how to refine the intuition. That's something that we work towards, right? A lot of us are naturally very intuitive. Some of us, like I said before, have to still work on trusting that, because we're like, oh, should I trust this? And then we make a decision that wasn't actually aligned because we didn't trust that intuition, right? So that's also a thing. And then other people might have to work on refining that, but still, the only way you're going to do that is go for it, do things, right? Explore, be curious.
Experience through feeling.
Yes, I like that. Let's see if there's anything else that needs to come through right now. If you guys want to say anything, just go ahead. Who's giggling?
I am. Your face is like, okay, it's your guys' turn to talk now.
No, but I'm like, I was trying to like see if there's anything like that's that needs to be said, and I was like, did I hear that in my head, or was that actually someone laughing?
Yeah, it did not. The voice completely changed. Georgie's voice. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Georgie.
It just came to me really clearly the image that was on the wall at Mahara. Remember when we did this ecstatic dance? It was in the afternoon at 2:30 on a Sunday.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was, we stayed at a hotel.
Like grannies, midst of the day.
And we went in the middle of the day, and it was a very interesting experience because we had to use headphones. It was not just loud music in a venue or whatever. We had to use headphones, and the headphones, they were really low volume. Like, it was definitely not loud enough for me to really allow myself to drop into that space. So regardless, it was really interesting how the energies were moving and still weaving and still co-creating And I remember the name of the place called Mahara. And then I looked on the window, and it's either you, Michelle, or Charlotte. I don't know exactly who was. Like, Georgie, look at this. And it was this beautiful, big, metallic lotus of eternal life on the wall. And I took a photo of it. And at the
That
end,
was me.
it was you. Okay. Okay. It was somebody.
Charlotte.
It was me. Oh. But you pointed the eternal life lotus, and at the end, and at the beginning of the ecstatic dance, I bought, and Viviana also, we got a little bit crazy over this blue lotus. They had blue lotus essential oil, blue lotus flowers for the tea, and some sort of like extract, essence extract. And I was like going crazy. I'm like, oh my gosh, it was super good quality, like super good stuff. And all these little signs and synchronicities. And at the end, we were talking about where we're going to go to eat. Yeah, it was like, where are we going to go next to have dinner? And I was wondering, like, whoa, isn't it interesting? This place is called Mahara, and they have the eternal lotus on the wall. What if they have anything to do with the specific body of knowledge? But it was nobody to answer that question. And few days after, or it must have been last week, yeah, 2-3 weeks after, Renee confirmed to me that actually the owner from that space does study the quantum mechanics. But anyhow, like the whole point was that, again, it was this feeling weaving in, and it was this intuitive knowing that followed us all the time, and especially even when we went to have food. Or no, it was not that one. We were looking for a food place. I cannot remember what it was, but we're walking on the street, and then we said like, no, we should go back. And we decided to keep exploring, but we were going like further and further away. But eventually we found a way to go back. And it was all about listening to the subtle signals of our intuition, and those initial, like as Isha said, like that, the initial feeling most times is accurate, but sometimes it can be very, very subtle, and it can be quickly overwritten by different concepts, or the mental body, or whatever might be. So yeah, it was really interesting to observe how that very subtle thread of intuition was always there, but we needed to be present enough and probably attentive enough to pick it up and follow it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying, that I try to keep my mental body and my emotional body out of that feeling, because those two can play tricks on each other, and on the feeling can obscure it. And if you're basing your observations in merely how that person is talking, or how that person looks and stuff like that, that can also be a biased decision to mislead you or guide you to the correct place, but yeah, it's very important to be very centered whenever one is analyzing or trying to like follow with that intuition, like Ishel was saying, discernment.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just thinking of the moments where I've said to myself, oh yeah, this is it, and then all of a sudden a few months later, oh okay, it wasn't it. And then you get disappointed, and it's like, well, can I really trust myself? But then I look back and I'm like, well, you know what? I did learn a lot of things from this experience, and I got a few things that I'm still going to keep with me, and that I maybe like the philosophy behind a certain person or teaching or whatnot. It's all adding to that toolbox that will be useful later on when you're building something bigger. It's like you're adding things on. It's never about like, oh, I I have to leave this behind and start from zero. There's no starting from scratch ever. That's something that someone told me once, and I forget who it was. So sorry, I can't quote you on that, but somebody said there's never a starting from zero, because I was complaining. I was saying, I have to start from zero again. Like, I thought that this was it. And, I thought that I would get something good from what I was doing, and over and over, try again, until that thing that really brings you joy, that really sparks you, it will come. The thing is, you also have to realize that you're not even enjoying the journey because you're so worried about finding that big thing, which is something that I also had to, it had to come into my awareness, that I was constantly looking for this big thing. And somebody once told me, well, what if the big thing is you? And why are you looking for something outside of yourself kind of all the time, right? We're always doing that. But yeah, I mean, it's, yeah. So anyway, just to share what the thoughts that were coming through as you guys were speaking, but keep trusting that, right? Like, even though you make mistakes, there's no mistakes, only lessons, as people say, right? So
Yeah, and sometimes when we are refusing mistakes to ourselves, by refusing those potential mistakes, we're actually refusing the things we could have discovered and the things we could have explored in a way that would have bring even more awareness, more consciousness, more creativity, more connection. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing how we do block this co-creative process with life itself, with source itself, with the quantum field itself, by being afraid that if I'm not showing myself, or if I'm showing myself in this way, maybe that's what is required, or I'm going to be careful with this until I'm going to get a specific exact sign that this is right or wrong or whatever. Or it might be those things like, I don't really feel like jumping into this new business or whatever, because if I'm making a mistake. But I believe that the nuance here, the subtlety, is to give enough incubation space. So it's not about jumping headfirst, but it's not about worrying or withholding or being afraid that I'm going to start from zero again, or I've lost all that I invested in a specific area in my life. There's always this refinement process. Like they're almost like two threads happening. One is what needs to die, that doesn't serve anymore, like what needs to be let go, because that's almost too dense for this new version. But this new version is actually deeper towards the core. It's not that it's somebody else, it's me, for example, but I'm going deeper into my core. So there are different aspects of myself that have to be let go. And then while this transition is happening, yes, it's wise to kind of pace things and kind of like stay in an incubator, so the system calibrates properly, but at the same time it's always beautiful to take that next step, and to have this faith and this belief that the next step is still whatever step is required to go into my core even deeper.
C'est la vive. Actually, you're muted.
I know. I was just waiting to see if anybody else wanted to talk. Did you say c'est la vie?
I did. I was calling Viviana out.
I'm here. I'm listening. I'm just, telepathically commenting.
That's cool too.
Yeah.
I did hear your
It's like-
telepathic
But
message, by the way.
no, but it really ties into what Georgie just shared, and it's kind of like I feel already this hibernation zone started with me a bit, like right now, like with the winter solstice, and like however you want to call this portal, or if you see it as something distorted or not, I definitely feel this pull inwards and just like a bear.
Oh, that's so cute. You know what? Can I tell you what I felt from you, like just now when we were talking about this?
Huh?
I don't know if you want to talk about this. If not, that's okay. But the whole access thing, I don't know if you wanted to mention anything about that.
I feel this is a long story, but we can come to the conclusion maybe of like, it was kind of, we were examining a modality together, which is something I really like, because we're kind of like have the same way of discerning things and the same standard of like allowing something in our hologram or not, if it's not aligned with eternal mechanics and with eternal God source. And so it was basically about this tool, which was kind of like something, a mixture of different modalities of kind of like body work and nervous system regulation, but also belief work and subconscious work. And so we were kind of using this, and some people in the group started to use it. And I just, after some time, I just saw what it did with my consciousness, and I realized that it's not a tool that is kind of the problem. It was more how my consciousness was using it as a way of kind of, or could use it as a way of bypassing to just feel my feelings. And so we discussed this, and it was really beautiful to see how we are all open to reassess things, and how we're not like stuck in our beliefs or stuck in our attachments to things. And it's something that can actually be generalized to see that no matter what modality or what system you're interacting with, also Keylontic science, it's always about your consciousness and what you do with it, and how you allow it to either bring you closer to source or bring you further away and distract you. And what I took from this experience was just to see that no matter what I'm excited about or what I feel like is serving me, the first thing is always my connection to source, and to remember the truth and to remember who I truly am. And then maybe some tools I are obsolete or I don't need, but they just have the second priority kind of. It's not like my first go-to and kind of bypassing going back home to source for anything. That's maybe how I can sum it up right now.
That's great. It's just bringing it back to, yes, always see things as tools for your journey, and but don't get attached to the concepts, right? That's where the phase locking occurs, right? Something like that. And so and the whole thing about the, what was it, apple banana pancake?
That was so funny, because in this modality you use certain statements for clearing things. And I just felt like, like somehow someone I don't know pre-programmed this specific type of sentence in a way, like when we're talking, we're spelling. It's like we're always affirming something, and our words are really powerful. And just got this layer of this modality for myself, and saw it more clear. That basically I could just say, what was it? Apple banana pancake or something, and it could have the same effect, because it's just really about my meaning that I give to it, and it's about the permission slip of just allowing myself to soften around something or release something or clear something. So we had some apple banana pancake clearing.
That brought us to the topic of like the placebo effect and all. It's like when you're healing because you believe it works, and also because you want to heal. You've got to want to heal first of all, and also have that belief that whatever you're taking is actually helping you. So there's a lot of things, and of course we can also maybe talk about eternal law and the mechanics and all that, and all the things that are also ingrained in the collective consciousness, which sometimes we do certain things, or certain things affect us in a certain way because it's in the collective, not necessarily because we believe in it or not. I don't know. That's a topic that I'm kind of exploring right now, or thinking about a lot. Is like there are some things that we just don't really have that much control over, but it's because those concepts have been ingrained in the collective consciousness. I don't know. Any thoughts on that?
What came to me was something else. It's almost like what Viviana was sharing is this refining stage, like when anybody gets to a technique or I don't know, a specific way of healing, or a specific thing that a friend is recommending. It's very, very important to go into it with discernment and awareness, and not to be overly excited as like, oh wow, this is so cool. Like I used to do this all the time, like this is so cool. And because my friend is doing it, that I'm valuing and I'm seeing, I'm kind of having admiration towards or a respect in a specific way, is almost automatically endorsing something. And then I will take it automatically into my consciousness, into my field, without second guessing. And at the same time, there's the other extreme where people are a little bit paranoid and they start to kind of like Google all sorts of things. Is this good for you? Should I take magnesium? Is gonna do me well or whatever. So what I personally got to know with time is that I is the best for me personally to take time to explore a certain method or a certain technique or a certain ideology or whatever might be, and really feel. We go back to the feeling, like really feel what is that about, and is it something that expands my consciousness? And if it does, like, is giving me the hype, because if the hype is there, is not necessarily a good thing. It gives me like, oh wow, this is so cool, and this astral bliss or whatever. And at the same time, it is very important to have this incubation time in which I'm kind of like taking it step by step, and I start to apply a little bit, but without throwing myself completely in it. And I apply a little bit and I see, let's see if this, like having curiosity, not fully endorsing it and not fully like dismissing it. But at the same time, for whatever reason, it came to me like this collective, like how certain things are ingrained in the collective, and whatever came to me was Shilajit. Like, when people want to feel better, they go on and take Shilajit, and Shilajit is
What is
not
that?
right. Like the is the mineral. It's like a mineral paste.
Oh, I had no
It's
idea.
like ancient resin or mud kind of thing, right, Georgie? Like,
Exactly. It's like a mineral rich mud kind of thing. Yeah, raisin. And a lot of people are taking this worldwide, and it's like it went off the charts. But it's actually that thing that it's a 60 buckable harness. So again, it's everything that is kind of mainstream and it takes like this like huge proportion. It has to be looked at with discernment, and certain things, yes, are applicable and useful, and not necessarily anybody should have some worry in regards to those. And from my perspective, access, it is that kind of thing. Like, it is big, it is like a huge thing. But I had this conversation with Viviana and Shiraj, and we kind of sift through it in a way that allowed us to see beyond what is going on. But then on the other side, the collective is kind of like pushing certain things as like Shilajit or whatever other things are there. Reiki, for whatever reason, the Reiki was in my head earlier as well. So there's this need to take it step by step and listen to the inner to the inner environment, more than endorsing something just because somebody we like or admire, or looks like it is doing better in life is doing that. So that was my personal lesson. Like, I will not go into things just because it happened to work for so and so, or because so and so I believe is more intelligent than I am, or more mature than I am, or wiser than I am, and therefore I'm going to take it for granted. I'm giving the time to explore it and really see with discernment, and test it out to see if it functions, but not as a crutch, not as something that kind of like helps me move from A to B. It's like it's a tool. So it's a very different thing between a tool and a crutch. It's something that I'm I'm using to optimize something, or something that I'm dependent on, and in a way, on a very subtle level, I can be even a victim to.
Yeah, and as you say, that it's just about how we relate to things, and also it's so beautiful to be able to bring this discernment together. That no one was so attached that we were not able to look at it or dogmatic about something. And yeah, as you say, it's like it's so subtle at some point. This discernment points, where it's really about feeling into our bodies. Does it resonate in my body, and how does it feel in my heart? And not like, oh yeah, in my mind this seems like a good idea. To really get into the body, because this is not lying to us. And if we sense some contraction, or even sense nothing about something, maybe it's not for us. Maybe someone else is really in that moment of receiving a lot for that, but we can find something that is more aligned for us. And for me, it was just this moment of feeling like, yeah, it just somehow became a distraction for me, and a way of like bypassing looking deeper at the feelings and just being with them. And yeah, it was actually beautiful unraveling of just realizing I don't need anything else than source. Like, I mean, I can use tools, I can use methods and everything, but I'm not using them from the place of feeling I need that to get better or something. And this is of course a long way to come there, and it's also great to remind each other of that truth.
Yeah, it was really beautiful. And thanks to the points you brought up, and say like, let's look at these things. I was having an experience yesterday when something really kind of like, let's say, trigger me or bother me or whatever, and then I went into using a certain tool, and I was like, wait a minute, like, am I really diffusing the situation? Am I using this to discharge that energy, or I'm actually bypassing? And what I noticed, it was that it was very helpful to to dissolve the charge, but then I had to sit with the situation. I had to sit with myself. I had to look at what was actually upsetting or bothering me. So it was this beautiful reminder that you were pointing how certain things can become bypassing. And then it put me in this space of like, okay, I'm applying this tool, but let me see if I get into bypassing, or I know and I perceive the subtle boundary in a way, and then I just use it to process something to a point where it's not overwhelming anymore. And then from that point on, I still go into what it is and be with it and sit with it and work through it in the way we know it's mostly suitable.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm glad this topic came up, because it has been a lot in my field lately, the whole like shadow work, bypassing, and I do see a lot of that going on. And of course I've done it too. We've all been there. And so yeah, I think it's a very good thing that we're bringing up this topic, the four of us, because it's cool when I go and say things, but it's nice to have that confirmation coming from you guys and for everybody tuning in. So yeah, really, yeah, pay attention to that. You don't want to bypass your feelings. And Ricky, I know you took a little break, so welcome back. And I wanted to, I think while you were gone is when I asked what you guys thought about, like, this is what I've been thinking about. It's like, yes, we have maybe the power to change certain things, and we were even talking about this in Amsterdam as well. But to what extent is, like, for example, the things that are really, really ingrained in the collective consciousness, the concepts, some of them, it feels like sometimes they're just maybe affecting us in a certain way because of the fact that certain people have thought that, like, well, let me put a specific example. Let's say the other day I was thinking about, well, why is it, for example, that let's say somebody wants to get really buff, right, and goes to the gym, and it's like, and they eat a ton of protein and stuff, and that's for me, it's like, well, but I've seen other people not eat that much protein, and they still look really strong, and it's like, how does that work, right? Is it because everybody's different, or is it because, you know, that certain concept was so ingrained in the collective consciousness that now everybody thinks that they need protein to, you know, get buff, and so it happens because of that. To what extent do we have that power to change things, in other words, you know?
I kind of see it as software and hardware, right? Both can be changed. It's just a matter of how you change it. Because, like, you know, there's a lot of people into the New Age movement, right? Which we all, well, not everybody knows it's part of the Central Intelligence PSYOP. And for people to break free from that after what, like 100 years kind of programming in a way, to kind of start looking somewhere else, you could see that there's a power to change there. But it depends on that consciousness ability to ask questions and get coherent answers, you know, because you can ask a question and completely want to expect a specific answer, and therefore you're attaching to an outcome. It's like a computer program also, you know, like there's implants, there's ways to taking the implants out, there's software, there's ways to deleting the software. You can delete it from your desktop, but you have to uninstall the application. And, you know, there's I would say there's layers to that without getting very technical. But we do have the power to do that, but we need dedication, focus, commitment, and all those attitudes to be able to correct or make a change in whichever aspect. Also, there's a lot of people that that attach to the collective suffering or to the collective programming, and therefore it's a little bit harder for them to move maybe from that space. So, like, for example, you know, there's the astrology paradigm, and I'll say this because it was my experience. I remember doing a meditation one day after a couple, you know, months of just straight meditation, and all of a sudden I'm like, again, like I came out of the meditation and it's like, oh, what is this concept of astrology? And like I was talking to myself, but the part of myself that was talking was not the fully embodied consciousness. And basically it was saying, you know, you've connected to me in the sense of like my bigger aspect of myself, like my complete self in some way. And that part of me is much bigger than any concept of planetary bodies that can affect the imprint of your birth and therefore command how you resolve or do things in life. And after that day, it was so strange that I had like met people that whole month that were like, oh, what's your astrology? And every time that I told them, you know, my birth month and stuff, they were like, you don't behave like that. You have more characteristic ideas or this, that, and the other. And I'm like, oh, well, this is kind of like proving, you know, what I had tapped into in that meditation. So, you know, and also you can use astrology to unbind yourself from those archetypes or those patterns that would rule your sun sign or whatever. You know, you can use that to unplug yourself from that. So, you know, there's many ways that you can do different things in regards to what we could call software programming or hardware programming in the sense of what you asked, in my opinion.
Okay, yeah, so there are some things that are a little bit more, maybe take a longer time to deprogram, and also especially because a lot of people are believing that, right? That's kind of the way I see it. It's like the more people believe in something, the more ingrained it is, the more difficult it is to deprogram it from our experiences, and it just kind of happens. You eat protein and yeah, you get more muscle. It's like it just happens. You don't have to really believe in it because it's already in the collective consciousness. That's kind of what I was thinking. And it's like, well, but we do have the capability of changing those things. And I guess the more people focus on changing a specific thing, the easier it gets to change that, right?
Yeah, also like if you look at the perspective of, tell me in Spanish they say, dime con quién andas y te digo quién eres. So tell me with who you hang with and I'll tell you who you are, right? So that's a collective body in a sense, defining one individual. So if you attach to a specific idea, topic, whatever, you're going to predispose yourself to possibly act in those ways, or maybe figure out that you shouldn't be acting in those ways. So it depends on your perspective and your attention and focus to all that. As well as, if you go from the trauma paradigm, you can be a people pleaser. And by being a people pleaser based on what makes someone a people pleaser, you can be a people pleaser for the collective consciousness of fallen angelic beings that are fucking the planet up, and basically go towards that tangent. And it's going to be even more difficult for you because you have to heal your emotional body. You have to heal a specific imprint and then heal your direction of things. And you have to be brave enough to confront yourself with the proper questions and get actual answers that actually, you might not want to hear. So I think also it goes into the realm of how deep do you want to know the truth? Like, how much of the truth do you really want to know? Because if you're still seeing truth as a burden or as something that can weigh on you, you're not, like, whether you ask your questions or not in the proper way, you're not going to get an answer straightforward with all of it if you're still thinking that the truth is a burden, because you're not going to overburden yourself subconsciously by asking a question that you shouldn't receive an answer to, or you shouldn't receive the full answer to that question, right? Because it's kind of like, and sometimes, I've done that, and sometimes it's, it backfires because it's like, holy shit, it's like my world is falling apart in some way. Kind of like with my experience with the Flower of Life situation on 2018. But, after 4 months, I was able to resolve that within myself. And I was looking at nature, and I just started seeing like programs and shit, like trees and stuff that I consider organic and natural. I was like, oh my God, this is what's going on. And I was totally sober, right? I wasn't like doing any psychedelics and stuff like that. And that was like a daily thing that I was like detaching from the actual concept that like it's a hologram. And depending how you see the hologram, it could be mechanical, it could be energetical or stuff, but it's at the end of the day, like, how deep do you want that truth to be given to you? You have to be able to face it and live with it in a way that it supports you and not brings you down. Obviously, at the beginning, it might bring you down because it's a heavy realization to what the reality is. But yeah, you just, ask the correct questions and be ready for whatever answer to the capacity that you have to hold that truth within yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And these girls are saying here in the chat that they were talking about the same saying. Are you guys talking about the one that who you hang with is who you are? Is that the one?
Yeah, exactly. Georgie was telling this exact thing to me yesterday.
Yeah, somebody was saying look at like the top 4 or 5 people that you talk with the most, and that's kind of who you turn into, right? So yeah, really pay attention to who you're hanging out with, and are they a really good influence in your life? Are they helping you advance? And are you both getting something from your relationship, right? And if that's not the case, then start asking yourself some questions, right? Like, what are you still doing in that relationship? Or what is the other person getting from you? Or what are you getting from them still? But maybe there's something there too that you have to let go of in order to move forward. That was something that somebody needed to hear right now. So that's why I said that. So yeah.
Also add to that, see what the value in the exchange is. and how much does it add, how much does it take from your own self value, right? And see.
I would,
Go ahead.
sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. I would say that feels a little bit too transactional for me. It feels like there's a little bit of like soul that is missing. I would rather ask the question, what am I actually co-creating with this person? Like, what is the co-creation? What is the result of our interaction? Is it growth? Is it expansion? Um, is it more consciousness, more awareness, more presence, more joy? So basically, how I see it is, first of all, like questioning what are my values, like what do I value within myself, and what are things that I care about, as in terms of virtues. I don't even like, I probably values is, it can be interpreted in many ways, but what virtues do I want to embody, and what virtues do I want to see everywhere around me? So the question is, what is the co-creation with this person, with this situation, with this job, whatever it might be, like what is creating? And if this creation is aligned with those virtues, then yes, I can continue. But if not, probably the next question would be, is there anything else I have to learn from here? Is there anything else that I have to see or perceive or understand that will open up the possibility for me to align with those virtues that um, I hold dear to my heart, for example?
I feel this is beautiful what you shared, and like what came to my mind is to add something, not like it's like not either or, it's more like it's about what we want to co-create and to focus there, but much more than what actually happens, because we cannot control how other people want to co-create or not co-create. Is more to be in peace with where you are coming from. So it can be that you had the most beautiful intention, like in a conversation, to appreciate someone, but they just have their walls up and it's not getting through. You know what I mean? It's like, for me, it's not about the outcome so much, or I try not to focus there, because this leads to suffering basically. And I realized it's more serving for me if I try to just make sure that I'm coming from love, I'm coming from the place of integrity, where I want to be and how I want to interact and co-create. And then the co-creation is even more beautiful, because there's this openness to let allow whatever needs to happen.
Yeah. Thank you for adding that, guys. And Ricky was saying in the chat, yeah, that's the value. What were you referring to, Ricky, there?
Well,
I remember.
I was what Georgie interjected into what I was saying. Basically, she was defining in her own terms what I was sharing about value. So like your self-value, the other person's self-value, what value are you getting from the interaction, and how is that adding or taking? Obviously, it's a co-creation, right? Because you're in that situation with the other person, so you have to be aware that there's two involved. So you have to like search within yourself and within what is being reflected to what you can learn, what you can unlearn, and if you need to stay, move, assist, or keep co-creating that interaction with that person. And that's kind of like what I was referring towards, the value. But it was basically what Georgie was saying.
Right. Yeah. We do this a lot, right? Like sometimes we use different words, but in reality, we're talking about the same, more or less the same thing. And yeah. That's kind of what I was going to get at as well. But yeah, it's better to use. Yes, some words are a little bit better to explain certain things. So I think it's good that we kind of all said something about this, because that message needed to come through for someone listening, or maybe a few people listening. So yeah, thank you guys. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would like to add one thing. It's not that I was not feeling or sensing what Ricky was saying. What felt transactional for me was the one specific bit, giving or taking. And he does have a point with that. However, this concept of like, what am I taking or what am I giving into this? It's still like, it feels like there's some sort of like a way of energy siphoning, or like some sort of like energy exchange that doesn't necessarily feel very organic to me. That's why I was kind of like changing it into virtues over values, and just looking at the co-creation space. Because, for example, if my intention is to co-create something with you, Ishel, okay, I come into this space of co-creation with my virtues, and then I will assess while I move into this co-creation, if it aligns. So I don't see it as I'm taking something or giving something. And but of course, maybe if you would have asked me like a couple of months ago, I would have had the same words or the same perspective, but the perspective shifted a tiny bit. Like there's a subtlety in there, there's like a nuance in there. So now I'm seeing like, what am I co-creating, like what is this co-creation reflecting back at me? Is it aligned with my values and my virtues? If the answer is yes, then I choose if I want to stay there or not. But I'm not seeing anymore, I used to, but not anymore, seeing as giving or taking. Like, is this taking something from me? Because nothing can take away anything from me that I'm not willing to give, or if it's not leaking somewhere in my field. So eventually it's still my self accountability and self responsibility to be true to myself and see, where do I leak energy, or what am I giving that it's not serving that alignment.
Okay, yeah. Let me think if there's anything else that needs to be said here, but I think we covered quite a bit, like, of topics and messages for people. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts, or if you want to say a few words to anybody listening out there. Shout outs are welcome as well. We already gave a shout out to the pizza place in Amsterdam.
Pizza place, definitely Liz, Renee, Jess, that also were with us in the Netherlands, and we had beautiful experiences with them, and so much that came through in our conversation. Charlotte, yeah. And I would just circle back to the feeling and finding ways in which this feeling can be constantly, or not necessarily constantly, because I don't know, for me it's not possible to like and perpetually tap into that, but often enough to tap into this feeling through awareness, through presence, and using whatever it might look like it's external, like maybe it's a fabric or a flower or a cup of tea or a line in a book. It is something outside of me, but internally I take it internally and I process it internally in a way that connects me deeper to myself and connects me deeper to what I believe is the greatest connection that I could experience, which is connection to what created me, like as in source, the eternal source that always creates.
Yeah, beautiful. And thank you so much for bringing up the other people who also shared this experience with us, because, we're here because we stayed at the same Airbnb, and, we had so many talks and all. But yes, of course, I mean, we were 8 all together, and it was just so magical to meet up in person and experience these frequencies live. So yeah, I'm still like really hyped about it, and I think about it all the time. It's like that when I want to remember that feeling, right? It's like whenever you're feeling like maybe you have a difficult day or something's not going right in your life, just remember back a time when you were actually allowed to be yourself, when you felt like yourself, right? Like there was this moment of just plain happiness, no judgment. And you had this feeling of like there's like no expectations or just no worries, and just kind of connect to that, in that moment, and see how that shifts. It's going to shift your day. So yeah, that's my last message for you guys.
Beautiful.
Thank you for inviting us to co-create again. It was beautiful to speak with all of you.
Yay.
Thank you, Georgie. Thank you, Viviana.
Thank you, Vivi. Thank you, Viviana. Thank you, Michelle, for inviting us.
Of course, this had to happen, you know, and I thought it was so funny how like it took a little while to organize and all that, but like even the last minute I thought it wasn't gonna happen. I'm like, oh, you know, whatever, we'll organize it sometime next year or something. And then Ricky was telling us like how he had this, what happened, Ricky? Something in your meditation. You heard this voice telling you like we have
Oh yeah, I was like 2 days ago. I was like an hour into the meditation, and I like heard one thing that kind of like took me out of the meditation state, and then I was coming back into kind of like opening my eyes. I heard something about you have to tell Eggshell about the meeting. And I was like, oh shit. I was in my room, and I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna walk outside right now and like sit on the computer, blast my face with blue screen light, and then type it on Telegram. So I was like, I'll handle it tomorrow. But I had forgotten whenever I woke up. But Georgie reminded me.
Yeah, thank you, Georgie. This wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for you.
You're welcome. It was really good because I actually asked Rick at some point, it's like, why, like, how do you integrate? Like, what are you actually doing to integrate? And like, how long does it take you? Is it like, do you set up a time? Like, I'm gonna do this integration for like a week or 2 weeks. And it was really interesting because in that conversation, he gave me some insights. And again, you know, it's this thing of perception because you, Isha, and me was like, oh, well, we don't need that much time to integrate. It's kind of like Speedy Gonzalez thing, like boom, boom, boom. But at the same time, it's very interesting, like how he drops in and he goes back to certain moments. And if there's more information that could have been downloaded in that space, but something happened, maybe one of us interjected or something came up, like he had to kind of like shelve that process. So he goes back into that specific feeling or moment
Oh.
downloading. And then I was meditating before our call, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've been like shopping for Christmas all day with my mom, you know, like all that stuff, like fruits and veggies and whatever. And I need the toilet badly. And then I said, like, I need to meditate. So I was meditating, and it's like kind of feeling into if I have something to say, like there's a particular thing that I remember or recall or whatever. And then I realized that in certain moments, and of course I have the brain how I have it, and I'm still like not fully recovered after my accident, but I could sense and I could understand like how Ricky is processing through his like this integration, because that's something I thought I don't necessarily need, but it would have been actually quite helpful to just take some more time and like go into those places and kind of like anchor better the information and the memory. And it's still like, for me, this was my integration. Being in this conversation and in this exchange and this co-creation, it helped my integration. But it was a container that allowed that to come through. So I was not necessarily creating that for myself like very thoroughly. And anyhow, now I'm talking about integration, but I was inspired by him, and then I knew how we saw this, and then I was kind of like merging the perceptions and the perspectives together and kind of weaving them in a way that is suitable for me, that doesn't take 4 hours of meditation every day for 2 weeks.
That's so cool though. I really like that.
Hey.
Everybody has their way.
I do many things whenever I'm meditating. Some, you know, at least for integration of like a whole week, especially that day and some of the other information. it's not that I need 2 weeks. Like if I take 4 days and I just sit and go into my space and get all the information, I could do it in 4 days. But
You were busy. You were busy with a
yeah,
lot
I
of other
have,
stuff. So yeah.
house to clean, patients, clients, this, that, the other. I have to kind of like space it out without rushing, because if I rush, it's like it compacts the information. I can't access it. I have to be relaxed.
Right.
So
Yeah. I see what you mean. For me, it was listening to the 4 and some hour recording over again and taking notes, and like I re-listened to certain parts as well. And then that's where the bits and pieces of the videos come from. It's not just one, like it's one piece from the 2 hour mark, another piece from the 4 hour mark. It's like that's the way I integrate. So like, but I use, the pictures and sound, and like I like to touch and see things, I'm very like, yeah, visual and tactile. And so yeah, I guess that was my way of integrating it. And I did it like when I got home.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
and I got back home and I started working on the other half of the stuff that I needed to go do in DC.
Right.
And then I went to DC. And then in DC, there was like an overlapping of more information that I needed to like figure out. So,
Wow.
yeah. And it had to do with some different topic. Like it was completely different to what was going on in the Netherlands. So,
You met Austin too, right? In person as
well.
well.
Yeah, I did.
Well, that's gonna be a talk for another day. Perhaps you have to tell us more about that, because I'm curious. But
That's gonna be like the Ginkgo biloba podcast.
Yeah, I was like walking through the city. I'm like, oh, this tree is like really pretty. It was like calling my attention. And I look at the leaf and I'm like, oh, this is ginkgo. And I looked it up and I was like, oh yeah, this is ginkgo. And it was all over the freaking city. It was like everywhere. I was like, wow, people don't know they have like a miracle like tree right there.
wow, that's beautiful. Yeah. And you were just saying in the chat that maybe people can ask some questions. And yeah, guys, if you have questions, send them to me. I'll probably do a post on one of the stories or something, so people can ask stuff, and then we can do another recording sometime whenever you guys are free. Or it doesn't have to be all of us either. It can be just one or two of us. It doesn't matter. There's another project that is underway as well that I won't say too much about, but yeah, that's going to be a space where I think a lot of people can participate or ask questions, and so I'm really excited.
Awesome. So this could be the pilot or like the trial or whatever. Beta.
This is the beta test.
Beta test, yeah, exactly. Where people that the ones listening, they can ask questions, and they can also maybe leave comments or reviews and say, hey, this is the value I got from this episode, or this is the value I got from the podcast. And that's going to help you kind of like get a better feel of what is the audience like, and kind of like moving towards. So that would be really helpful, because we can talk. We can record.
I know you guys can talk.
The question is, can you take 4 hours from us?
Oh, yeah, that's no problem. Hey, listen, I've been on to practice for podcasting, I was on this app that now I'm like, I don't know if you guys have heard about it, but it's called Stereo. And yeah, it got a little to be too much, like just a bunch of energies and like people, like a lot of siphoning for sure in there. But I had conversations of like up to 6 hours. And it was like I was like up all night sometimes. And that's where it turned into something that was more like siphoning my energy. I was literally there every single day. That was good practice, but
I remember that was last year in the summer.
Oh yeah. No, well, I did go back into it, but saying, hey, I'm gonna, just do talks here and there. And I did that, but it still felt a little weird. So I stopped. But that was like in 2020, I think, when I downloaded it.
Oh, it was 2021. Oh, maybe it was 2020, but you went back in 2021 and you were sharing with me the vibes.
Yes, I remember. And I told you, hey, come with me. And then you come. And I ended up leaving after a little while again. Like, this is the same stuff. It would improve, but yeah, no. But yeah, anyways, the length, I mean, I think this is a good length. Some people will actually listen to a 4-hour recording, but I think like an hour
Pause
and a
and
half,
then
2 is fine.
back.
Huh?
You can press pause and come back.
Right. Yeah, you can save it for another day, right? So in any case, thank you guys for listening. If you're still here, then yeah, obviously this information is for you. And yeah, so if you have questions, like Ricky was saying, please do send them to me, and I'll plan for another episode. And let me see, do you guys have anything else that you want to add before we say until next time?
I'm grateful for being here, for sharing the space with you, with all of you in Netherlands. And today again, it was such a beautiful re-experience in a way. So yeah, the co-creation continues.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else want to say anything? I think we're in hibernation mode now. That's great. Okay.
I was waiting to see Viviana talk.
You received it? Nice.
No,
Yeah, I'm
I don't
also
have
really,
anything.
really grateful and looking forward to the next time we're gonna talk like this.
Yay. Thank you.
Alrighty.
That's the great way to end the podcast. Alrighty.
Alrighty, guys. See you on the next one.
Lovely. Love it.